depending on what happens next, is that it's set a new precedent that security can be used to control members of the family.
New photos linked to Tom Bower have suddenly surfaced, but what caught viewers off guard was that it involved Lilibet. Within hours, the internet exploded with reactions, and Prince Harry was said to be in shock. Palace watchers noticed the tension immediately as old royal drama came rushing back into the spotlight. The timing raised eyebrows, but the silence afterward stirred even more controversy. Some say the photos revealed more than faces, others say they reopened wounds. But the biggest mystery remains: what was really shown in those photos that hit Prince Harry so hard? Join us as we find out the impact of this unusual incident on the Sussex family. The shocking leak. The morning started like any other Tuesday at the Sussex residence in Montecito, California. Prince Harry woke up early and went downstairs to make coffee while Meghan was still sleeping. He grabbed his phone from the kitchen counter and began scrolling through his news alerts, a habit he developed to stay informed about recent happenings. What he saw on the screen made his heart sink and his hands shake. Multiple news websites were displaying photographs of his daughter Lilibet that he had never authorized for publication. The images were everywhere, spreading across the internet like wildfire. Harry's first instinct was to check if Meghan had somehow posted these pictures by accident. He quickly realized that was impossible because these were photos from their private collection that had never been shared with anyone outside their immediate family. The photographs showed intimate moments from recent months, including scenes from inside their home that only a handful of people had ever witnessed. His mind raced as he tried to understand how this could have happened. The security measures they had in place were supposed to prevent exactly this type of breach. The photos were being shared by Tom Bower, the British author who had already written a critical book about Meghan. Bower's social media accounts were flooded with thousands of comments and shares within minutes of posting. News organizations around the world were picking up the story and running their own articles about the leaked images. Harry could see the photographs being analyzed and discussed by strangers who had no right to see these private family moments. The violation felt personal, like someone had broken into their home and stolen precious belongings. Harry immediately walked upstairs to wake Meghan and show her what was happening. She sat up in bed and stared at the phone screen in disbelief. They both knew this was not just another tabloid story that would fade away in a few days. This was a fundamental breach of their family's security and privacy. The couple had worked so hard to create a normal life for their children, away from the constant scrutiny they faced in Britain. Now it felt like all those efforts were crumbling before their very eyes. Within 30 minutes, Harry was on the phone with his head of security. The conversation was tense and urgent as they discussed how to contain the damage and prevent further leaks. The security chief suggested immediately checking all devices in the house and interviewing every staff member who had access to their personal files. Harry agreed but felt sick knowing that someone they trusted had betrayed them. The thought that a person they welcomed into their home could sell out their daughter for money was almost too painful to process. Meghan started making her own phone calls to their legal team in Los Angeles. The lawyers explained that while they could pursue legal action, the damage was already done. Once images are posted online, they spread to countless servers and devices around the world. Even if they managed to get Bower to remove the original posts, copies would exist forever on the internet. This reality made Meghan furious because it meant Lilibet's privacy had been permanently violated. She would grow up knowing that strangers had seen private moments from her childhood without her consent. The couple spent the rest of the morning in crisis mode, reaching out to various contacts and trying to understand the full scope of the leak. Harry contacted friends in the media industry to see if they could help limit the spread of the photographs. Some sympathetic journalists agreed not to publish the images, but many others saw it as a legitimate news story that the public deserved to see. The debate about whether royal children should have privacy was reignited across social media platforms and news programs. As the hours passed, more details emerged about how widely the photographs had spread. They were trending on multiple platforms and being shared millions of times. Parent bloggers were discussing the images, privacy advocates were condemning the leak, and royal commentators were analyzing every detail of the pictures. Harry felt powerless seeing this invasion of his daughter's privacy unfold in real time. He thought about his own childhood and how the press had chased him and his brother constantly. He had moved to America specifically to escape that kind of attention for his own children. The stress of the situation was overwhelming for both Harry and Meghan. They had to figure out how to respond publicly while also dealing with their private feelings of anger and betrayal. Their primary concern was protecting Archie and Lilibet from understanding what was happening. The children were too young to fully grasp the situation, but Harry and Meghan knew this was just the beginning of a much larger battle. They would need to explain to their children someday why their private photos were available for anyone in the world to see. By afternoon, the story had become international news. Television networks were running segments about the leaked photographs and debating whether Bauer had crossed an ethical line. Harry received messages from family members in Britain who had seen the coverage and wanted to offer support. Even his strained relationship with his father and brother seemed temporarily forgotten as they acknowledged this incident. The day that started with a simple morning routine had turned into one of the most challenging moments since Harry and Meghan left royal life behind. Contents of the controversial photos. The first photograph that appeared online showed Lilibet in the backyard of the Montecito estate during what looked like a sunny afternoon. She was wearing a simple dress with flowers on it, and her distinctive red hair was catching the sunlight. The image captured her playing near a swing set that Harry had installed himself months earlier. The background revealed parts of their property that had never been seen publicly before, including their garden layout and the back entrance to their home. This level of detail concerned the security team because it could help unwanted visitors identify specific areas of the property. Another image showed both children together under a large oak tree in their yard. Archie appeared to be helping his younger sister with something, displaying the protective older brother role that Harry and Meghan had described in previous interviews. The photograph was candid, capturing a genuine moment between siblings without any awareness of being photographed. The quality of the image suggested it was taken with a decent camera rather than a quick phone snapshot, making investigators wonder if the photos were taken specifically with the intention of leaking them later. The third photograph was perhaps the most intimate and concerning. It showed Meghan sitting on the porch of their house holding Lilibet in her lap. They were both looking at something off camera, maybe watching birds or enjoying the view of their property. Meghan's face showed pure maternal love and contentment. The image revealed architectural details of their home, including window placements and door locations. Immediately, security experts flagged this as problematic because it gave potential threats too much information about the house layout and entry points. A fourth image appeared to be from a small birthday celebration. He served in the military and people respected that. He started charities for wounded soldiers. Colorful decorations hung in the background and a cake sat on an outdoor table. Lilibet was surrounded by what looked like a few carefully chosen guests, though their faces were mostly out of frame or blurred. The selective focus suggested whoever took the photo understood composition and photography. The celebration appeared modest and private, exactly the kind of low-key event Harry and Meghan preferred for their children. Seeing this special moment exposed to the world felt like an additional layer of violation. One particularly striking photograph showed Lilibet's face in clear detail. Her features combined aspects of both parents in a way that fascinated the public. She had Harry's red hair and blue eyes, but Meghan's facial structure and smile. The image cleared some speculation that's been on for years since the Sussexes had shared very few photos of their daughter. While the public curiosity was understandable, the way this information became available was completely wrong. Harry had always intended to let his children decide for themselves how much public exposure they wanted when they were old enough to make that choice. Another image captured a very calm moment of Lilibet looking at books on a blanket spread across their lawn. The photograph showed her concentration and curiosity, personality traits that Harry and Meghan had mentioned in rare comments about their daughter. Toys were scattered around her and the setting sun created a golden glow across the scene. The peaceful nature of the image contrasted sharply with the chaos its publication created. What should have been a treasured family photo was now being examined by millions of strangers. The collection also included a photo taken from inside their home looking out toward the garden. Lilibet could be seen through a window, playing outside while someone watched from indoors. This particular image raised serious security concerns because it showed the view from inside their house. Anyone studying these photographs could start building a mental map of the property layout and daily routines. The implications for their safety were significant and required immediate changes to their security protocols. The final leaked photograph showed family shoes lined up by a back door. Small children's shoes sat next to adult ones, creating a touching domestic scene. While this image did not show any faces, it revealed personal details about their daily life. The type of shoes, the way they were organized, and the door they were placed beside all provided information that the family never intended to share. Every photograph told a story about their private life, and together they painted a detailed picture of the Sussex family home. The overall quality and variety of the photographs suggested they came from multiple occasions over several months. Rules about who you could marry, rules about what you could say, rules about where you could go and who you could be friends with. This was an ongoing collection of images taken during different seasons and events. The systematic nature of the leak indicated careful planning and not an opportunistic grab of a few photos. Someone had been gathering these images over time and waiting for the right moment to release them. This realization made the betrayal even more painful because it meant the breach had been happening for much longer than anyone initially thought. But why does this really matter? Tom Bower's history of royal exposés. Tom Bower built his reputation over decades as an investigative journalist and author who specialized in writing unauthorized biographies of powerful people. His career began in television journalism, where he produced documentaries that exposed corruption and misconduct in various industries. He developed a reputation for being thorough, persistent, and willing to publish information that his subjects wanted to keep hidden. His transition into writing books allowed him to go deeper into his subjects' lives and present more comprehensive accounts of their actions and motivations. Over the years, Bower published biographies about media moguls, business tycoons, and political figures. Each book followed a similar pattern of extensive research, interviews with people connected to the subject, and presentation of brutal information that challenged the public image these figures had carefully built. He faced legal threats several times, but his publishers stood behind him because his work was thoroughly researched and defensible in court. His books consistently became bestsellers because readers were fascinated by the gap between public personas and private realities. Bower's interest in the royal family grew stronger after Prince Harry and Meghan Markle's relationship became public. He watched their romance, wedding, and subsequent difficulties with the British press and palace life. When they decided to step back from royal duties and move to North America, Bower saw an opportunity for a major book project. They gave her rules and schedules. They told her how to dress and what to say, but she did not want to be molded, and Harry did not want her to change. He began collecting information from palace staff, royal reporters, and people who had worked with Meghan during her acting career. His goal was to present a complete picture of Meghan that differed from the narrative she and Harry were sharing publicly. The book Bower published about Meghan became controversial immediately upon release. It contained allegations about her behavior toward staff, her approach to royal duties, and her relationship with her own family. Supporters of the Sussexes dismissed the book as biased and full of information from unreliable sources who had personal grievances. Critics of Meghan saw it as confirmation of their suspicions about her character and motives. The book sold extremely well in Britain, where public opinion about the Sussexes was divided and often negative. Bower's network of sources extended deep into the world surrounding the royal family. He maintained relationships with former palace employees who felt mistreated or undervalued during their service. He knew journalists who had covered the royals for years and had their own collections of information and gossip. He also connected with people from Meghan's past who were willing to share stories about her time in Hollywood and her first marriage. This extensive network gave him access to information that most journalists could never obtain. However, the decision to publish private photographs of Lilibet represented a significant escalation in Bauer's approach. Previous royal biographies had relied on interviews, documented events, and public records. Publishing private family photos crossed into territory that even seasoned royal reporters considered off-limits. Children of public figures had traditionally been given some protection from media intrusion, especially when their parents actively tried to keep them out of the spotlight. Bauer's choice to publish these images showed he believed different rules applied to Harry and Meghan. Bauer justified his actions by arguing that Harry and Meghan were public figures who profited from their royal status while demanding privacy. He pointed to their Netflix deal, Harry's memoir, and their various interviews as evidence that they wanted public attention on their own terms. According to his logic, they could not selectively choose what aspects of their life remained private while actively sharing other parts for financial gain. This argument resonated with people who were frustrated by what they saw as the couple's hypocrisy. The author's willingness to publish these photographs also reflected his belief that the public had a right to see Lilibet. She was seventh in line to the British throne and therefore a figure of legitimate public interest. Bauer argued that British taxpayers had supported the royal family for generations and deserved to know about all its members, including those living abroad. This perspective ignored the fact that Harry and Meghan had specifically left royal life to escape such scrutiny and were not receiving public funding for their lifestyle. Harry wanted to step back from some of his royal duties. He wanted to live part of the year in another country. Bauer's connections were crucial to obtaining the photographs in the first place. Someone with access to the Sussex family's private collection had to be willing to provide those images to him. The relationship between Bauer and his source likely involved financial compensation, though such arrangements are typically kept confidential. His reputation for protecting sources and paying well for valuable information made him an attractive option for anyone looking to leak sensitive material. Years of building trust within networks of angry employees and royal insiders had prepared him for exactly this type of opportunity. Even more, the timing of the photo release appeared calculated to maximize impact and sales for any future projects Bauer might have planned. Released during a relatively quiet period for the royals, the photos immediately dominated headlines and social media discussions. Bauer's name was mentioned in every article and broadcast about the leak, raising his profile even further. Whether he planned to write another book about the Sussexes or simply wanted to remain relevant in royal commentary circles, the photo leak achieved his apparent goal of staying at the center of the conversation. But Harry isn't having it. Harry's immediate response. The first call Harry made after discovering the leaked photos went to his head of security. The conversation was brief and direct as Harry explained what had happened and demanded immediate action. His security chief assured him that a full investigation would begin within the hour and that all staff members would be questioned. Harry specifically wanted to know if their digital security systems had been compromised or if the leak came from a human source. The security team promised to examine all possibilities and report back with findings as fast as possible. Meghan simultaneously contacted their primary lawyer in Los Angeles, who specialized in privacy law and media litigation. The attorney had represented numerous celebrities in similar cases and understood the unique challenges that came with trying to control information once it reached the internet. She explained that they had several legal options, including cease and desist letters, copyright claims, and potential lawsuits against Bauer and anyone who continued sharing the images. However, she was honest about the limitations of legal action once photographs had already spread. Harry's next call went to their public relations team. He needed advice on whether to make a public statement about the leak or maintain silence and let their lawyers handle everything behind the scenes. The PR advisors were divided in their opinions. Some felt a strong public statement would generate sympathy and put pressure on media outlets to stop sharing the photos. Others worried that any response from Harry would only draw more attention to the images and prolong the news cycle. So Harry decided to wait a few hours before making any public comments. The couple set up an emergency video conference with their full team of advisors, security personnel, lawyers, He thought he had made his choice, and it was done. But the monarchy does not let go easily. Every decision has consequences. PR specialists and close friends all joined the call to discuss strategy and next steps. The meeting lasted nearly 2 hours as everyone shared their perspectives on how to handle the crisis. Harry was frustrated by how long everything took because he wanted immediate results, but he understood that careful planning was necessary. Meghan took detailed notes and asked questions about every suggestion that was made during the discussion. One of the lawyers recommended immediately filing copyright claims with every social media platform hosting the images. Since Harry and Meghan technically owned the photographs, they had legal grounds to demand their removal under intellectual property law. The team began preparing the necessary paperwork to submit these claims to platforms including Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and various news websites. This process would take days to complete fully but could result in at least some of the images being taken down from major platforms. Harry personally reached out to executives at several major social media companies. He used connections from his previous work on mental health initiatives and online safety campaigns to get direct access to decision-makers. His message was clear and emotional as he explained that these were private photos of his young daughter who deserved protection. Some executives were sympathetic and promised to prioritize the removal requests. Others explained that their platforms had policies protecting journalistic content and freedom of expression that might complicate the situation. The security team presented their initial findings about potential sources of the leak. They had already identified several people who had access to the family's photo storage systems, including household staff and technical support personnel. Each of these individuals would need to be interviewed and have their devices examined. Harry authorized whatever measures were necessary to find the person responsible. He made it clear that he wanted criminal charges pursued if the investigation revealed illegal activity like hacking or theft. Meghan focused on the practical implications for their children's immediate safety. She wanted to know if the leaked photos revealed enough information about their property to make them vulnerable to intruders or photographers. The papers were old. Some were hundreds of years old. They contained the laws about succession, about who could inherit the throne. The security chief admitted that some of the images did show details that concerned him. He recommended installing additional cameras around the perimeter and increasing the number of security personnel on duty at all times. Meghan agreed to whatever changes were necessary to keep Archie and Lilibet safe. Meanwhile, Harry drafted a private message to send to family members in Britain before they learned about the situation from news reports. He wanted his father and brother to hear about the leak from him directly rather than reading about it online. The message was brief, explaining what had happened and that they were taking legal action. He did not ask for help or support but wanted to maintain open communication despite their strained relationships. Within an hour, he received responses from several family members expressing their shock and concern. The legal team prepared a formal letter to Tom Bower and his publisher demanding immediate removal of all photographs and a public apology. The letter outlined the legal violations involved in publishing private images of a minor without parental consent. It also threatened further legal action, including lawsuits for invasion of privacy and emotional distress. Harry knew the letter probably would not result in any meaningful change, but felt it was important to establish a formal legal record of their objections. By evening, the team had developed a comprehensive action plan that included legal filings, security upgrades, internal investigation procedures, and media strategy. Harry felt somewhat better having concrete steps to follow rather than just reacting emotionally to the violation. However, the anger and sense of betrayal remained strong as he thought about someone in his inner circle selling out his family. However, Meghan reminded him that they needed to stay focused on protecting their children rather than seeking revenge against whoever leaked the photos. The final decision of the day was whether to keep the children's regular schedule or make changes based on the security concerns. After much discussion, Harry and Meghan agreed to maintain their normal routine as much as possible. They did not want Archie and Lilibet to sense that anything was wrong or feel afraid in their own home. But security would be heightened invisibly with additional personnel positioned around the property. The goal was to protect the children while preserving their sense of safety and normalcy in a world that suddenly felt more threatening. The investigation into the betrayal. Within hours of the photo leak becoming public, an internal investigation began. A team of private investigators arrived at the Montecito property with specialized equipment designed to examine digital devices and network systems. Their first task was to map out exactly who had access to the family's photo storage and when those photos might have been copied or transferred. The investigators worked methodically through every device in the house, including phones, tablets, computers, and the home network server where family photos were backed up automatically. The household staff became the initial focus of the investigation since they had the most regular access to the property. Everyone who worked at the house in any capacity was asked to participate in voluntary interviews and device examinations. The security team emphasized that cooperation was expected and that refusing to participate would be seen as suspicious. Most staff members agreed immediately, understanding that finding the source of the leak was crucial for everyone's safety and the family's well-being. One by one, staff members were interviewed in a private room set up specifically for the investigation. The investigators asked detailed questions about their daily routines, what areas of the house they accessed, and whether they had ever seen or handled family photos. They wanted to know about any financial difficulties, contact with media organizations, or relationships with people outside the household. The interviews were professional but intense, and several staff members became emotional during questioning because they felt accused of something terrible. The technical investigation revealed that the family's photo storage system had multiple access points. Photos taken on Harry or Meghan's phones automatically uploaded to a cloud storage account that could be accessed from any device with the correct login credentials. Additionally, the home network had a local backup server that created copies of all family media files. Anyone with access to the main computer system could potentially view or copy these files. The investigators needed to examine logs showing who accessed what files and when. Network activity logs from the past 6 months were analyzed in detail. The investigators looked for unusual patterns like large file transfers, access at odd hours, or downloads to external devices. They discovered several instances where photo files had been accessed from devices that were not Harry or Meghan's personal phones. Some of these accesses came from household computers used by staff for legitimate purposes like organizing family schedules or managing household records. However, a few access points could not be immediately explained. The investigators also examined the possibility of external hacking or remote access to the family's systems. They checked for malware, unauthorized login attempts, and security vulnerabilities in the network setup. While they found some weaknesses in the security configuration, there was no clear evidence of external hacking. This finding pointed more strongly toward an inside source who had legitimate access to the systems and used that access to copy files without authorization. Attention turned to former employees who had left the household in recent months. 3 persons had worked for the family and then departed for various reasons, including contract completion and personal relocations. Each of these individuals had possessed different levels of access to the property and systems during their employment. The investigators reached out to them requesting voluntary cooperation with the investigation. 2 agreed immediately, while 1 requested to speak with an attorney first, which raised some suspicion. Financial records became another avenue of investigation. The team looked into whether any current or former staff members had received unusual payments or shown sudden increases in spending. They examined bank accounts with the permission of those who agreed to cooperate fully with the investigation. The goal was to identify if someone had been paid for providing the photographs to Bauer or an intermediary. This type of financial forensics could reveal connections that interviews and technical analysis might miss. The investigators also considered the possibility of multiple people being involved in the leak. Perhaps one person copied the files while another acted as the contact with Bauer. This would explain why finding a single source had proven difficult. They began looking at relationships between staff members and whether any groups regularly communicated outside of work. Social media connections and phone records could reveal patterns of contact that might be relevant to understanding how the leak occurred. Harry personally reviewed security camera footage from inside and around the house. He watched hours of recordings showing staff members moving through the property during their regular duties. The experience was uncomfortable because it meant viewing people he trusted with suspicion. However, he was determined to find evidence that might identify the person responsible. Meghan joined him for some of this review, and they both felt the weight of realizing their home had been violated by someone they knew. The possibility of remote accomplices was also explored. Someone working inside the house might have shared login credentials. The family needs stability. The public needs to see that we are strong, or provided information to a person outside who actually performed the file copying. The investigators interviewed staff about their personal relationships and whether anyone had asked them questions about the family's security systems or photo storage. Several staff members mentioned casual conversations with friends or family where they might have shared general information, though none recalled anything specific that seemed suspicious at the time. As days passed without a definitive answer, frustration grew. Harry wanted someone identified and held accountable, but the investigation was revealing how difficult it could be to trace digital files once they leave a secure system, even if they identified who copied the photos. Proving that that specific person gave them to Bauer might require additional evidence. The legal team explained that criminal prosecution would need strong evidence and that civil lawsuits had different standards of proof but came with their own challenges. The investigation expanded to include forensic examination of the leaked photos themselves. Digital images contain metadata that can reveal information about when they were taken, what device captured them, and whether they have been edited or transferred. The investigators obtained copies of the leaked images from various websites and began analyzing this embedded data. In some cases, the metadata had been stripped away, suggesting someone knowledgeable had tried to hide the photos' origins. Long-term consequences for the Sussexes. Social media platforms exploded with reactions within minutes of the leaked photos appearing online. Supporters of Harry and Meghan immediately expressed outrage at the violation of their children's privacy. Many users pointed out that Lilibet was an innocent child who had no choice about her parents' fame and deserved protection from media intrusion. However, an equally vocal group responded with criticism of Harry and Meghan themselves. They saw the leaked photos as a natural consequence of being public figures who selectively chose what to share. The photo leak forced an immediate and comprehensive review of every aspect of the Sussex family's security arrangements. Harry and Meghan hired an outside security consulting firm that specialized in protecting high-profile families from both physical threats and information breaches. This firm conducted a detailed assessment of the property, examining everything from fence heights to digital network security. The report ran over 100 pages and contained dozens of pointers for improvements that needed to be implemented quickly. The physical security upgrades began within days of completing the assessment. Additional cameras were installed at every entrance and along the property perimeter. The existing camera system was upgraded to higher resolution models that could capture clearer images even at night or in poor weather conditions. Motion sensors were placed in areas that previously had gaps in coverage. The goal was to ensure that every square foot of the property could be monitored and that no one could approach the house without being detected by multiple systems. The home's digital infrastructure underwent a complete overhaul. The family's personal devices were examined and configured with enhanced security settings. New protocols were established for how photos and videos would be stored going forward. Instead of automatic cloud backups, all family media would be stored on encrypted local devices with no internet connection. This meant sacrificing some convenience but gaining much better control over who could access their private files. Each family member received training on the new systems and procedures. Harry made the difficult decision to reduce the household staff to only those who had been with them since they moved to California. Several newer employees were let go despite having done nothing wrong. The decision was based purely on minimizing risk by limiting access to people who had already proven to be trustworthy over time. This reduction in staff meant Harry and Meghan had to take on more household responsibilities themselves, but they viewed this as a necessary sacrifice for their family's security and privacy. The remaining staff members were required to sign new employment agreements with much stricter confidentiality provisions. The contracts included substantial financial penalties for any breach of privacy and required staff to consent to regular security checks. Some staff members were uncomfortable with these new requirements, feeling that they were being treated like suspects rather than trusted employees. However, Harry explained that the changes were not about distrust but about creating systems that protected everyone involved. Background checks on all current and future staff became significantly more thorough. The security firm conducted deep investigations into the financial situations, personal relationships, and social media activities of anyone who would work for the family. This level of scrutiny was invasive but necessary given what had happened. Several potential new employees were rejected based on connections to media organizations or concerning financial pressures that might make them vulnerable to offers from tabloids or authors. Access to different areas of the house was restricted based on job responsibilities. Previously, most staff members could move freely throughout the property as needed. Under the new system, each person had access only to areas essential for their specific duties. Electronic locks were installed that required key cards or codes to enter certain rooms. The system created logs showing who entered which areas and when, providing an audit trail that would help identify the source of any future security breaches. Harry and Meghan changed their own behaviors regarding photos and documentation of family life. They became much more cautious about taking pictures and videos, knowing that any image created could potentially be leaked. Special occasions were still documented, but with awareness that these files represented security risks. They discussed establishing a system where family photos would be stored on devices that never connected to any network and would be kept in a secure location when not in use. The couple consulted with other high-profile families who had successfully maintained privacy for their children. They learned from the security strategies employed by tech billionaires, Hollywood stars, and political figures who managed to keep their children out of the public eye. Some of these families shared that they simply stopped creating digital records of their children altogether, relying instead on memory and occasional professional photography sessions conducted under strict security. Harry and Meghan considered whether they needed to adopt such extreme measures. Legal strategies evolved to focus more on prevention than reaction. Their attorneys worked on establishing stronger legal frameworks that could be enforced if future leaks occurred. They registered copyrights for family photos and created systems for immediately filing takedown notices if images appeared online. While these legal tools could not prevent initial publication, they could potentially curb how widely leaked content spread and create legal liability for those who shared it. Relationships with extended family members came under scrutiny as well. Harry and Meghan became more careful about what information they shared with relatives in Britain, worrying that details might inadvertently reach the press. They limited the personal photos sent to family members and kept conversations general rather than specific. This cautiousness created additional distance in already strained relationships, but protecting their children took priority over maintaining family connections that might pose security risks. The psychological impact of the leak influenced how Harry and Meghan approached trust in general. They became more isolated and self-reliant, reluctant to bring new people into their inner circle. Friends noticed that invitations to their home became less frequent, and that the couple seemed more guarded in conversations. The violation of trust represented by the photo leak had changed their overall approach to relationships and made them question who they could really rely on besides each other. Long-term plans for Archie and Lilibet's education and activities were reconsidered through a security lens. Harry and Meghan evaluated whether traditional schooling would expose their children to too many people and potential security breaches. They considered private tutoring or small pod-based education where they could control who had the chance to interact with their kids. Every decision about activities, playdates, and social development now included security considerations that most parents never had to think about. The financial costs of enhanced security became a permanent part of their budget. The combination of sophisticated technology, additional security personnel, legal services, and investigation capabilities required substantial ongoing investment. Harry and Meghan accepted these costs as necessary but recognized that their need to maintain income streams to support these security measures would keep them in the public eye to some degree. This created a difficult cycle where protecting their privacy required resources that could only be obtained through activities that attracted public attention. What are your thoughts on this unexpected leak? How do you think it affects Lilibet directly? Let us know your views in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe to this channel. Before you go, watch the other videos on your screen.